Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar. Ching, ching, bling, bling.
Welcome back to another episode of the Easy Dubs podcast, talking U.S. Open tennis, doing something a little bit different today, out of my comfort zone, but we got a great capper on today. We got Nick from @VoltagePicks. He is a tennis guru. You can obviously see the hockey jerseys in the background if you're watching this. So he's also a hockey guru, but we're going to dive into only tennis today. Nick, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, dude, it's great to have you on. I'm super excited to talk a little bit of tennis. My family is a tennis family, but I am not a tennis player and I don't follow tennis too much. So this is really where I get to just kind of pick your brain and learn a little bit, and see what I can take from what you got to say.
Right.
So
Well,
I'm excited to have you on.
awesome. Well, I'm fairly new to tennis myself, so can't exactly give the whole broad spectrum, but I can give my knowledge and what I've been grinding on lately.
That's all I want to hear. That's all I want to hear is, hey, we're all in the grind. It's just, you got to find your path, and hopefully we can find some good stuff for the fans to bet on while watching the tournament over the next few weeks. Let's just start off with as you mentioned, you just got into tennis a little bit, probably relatively recently. I don't know what it is, but what's your story? How'd you get into handicapping, and how'd you get into tennis handicapping?
Well, I started a group of friends of us at Voltage. We started handicapping. Well, actually, like betting against each other, betting on games against each other in high school, and then we found an offshore book outside of high school, and we started using that. And then we did find a Twitter one time, and we're like, oh, we could do something like this. Like, we talk about it enough, we have enough knowledge. And then I started handicapping tennis actually after, like, full time after this NHL season ended. So, like, when the playoffs was going on, so was the French Open, so I was betting both of them. But after that, now it's just been basically all tennis for me.
I love that. I think when, as we transition out of these seasons, sometimes you just got to find something new to take on, and tennis, and again, like I'm a golfer, but like tennis and golf, two of those sports that kind of go all year round, it feels like. And
Yeah.
there's always somewhere you can place a little bit of money, even if it's just
Yep.
pizza money. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it can be just kind of fun bets. Let's dive into the US Open. I'm really excited. It's again, I'm trying to watch a little bit more tennis. I always think it's fascinating to see these young guys kind of come out of nowhere. It feels like we've had a lot of young superstars kind of come up the last few years, and then we've obviously got those old guys like Joker and Nadal that are still holding down the fort.
Yep.
When we're talking about the majors, and let's talk about the U.S. Open, where do you find the most value in majors? Are we looking at head-to-head matchups, tournament winners? What are you thinking, kind of going into the next few weeks?
So my favorites for majors probably would be tournament winners and then quarter winners, because you never really know who's going to be playing against each other until you get the draw, which is usually like a couple days before the tournament. So I couldn't really like give you picks right now or like tell you who I would think would make it, their quarter, but those are, I've noticed, have seemed to be my favorites during the majors.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, right? Because I feel like we have couple of the same guys at the top every year when it comes to
Yep.
maybe the semis and the finals. But I think with the U.S. Open, because it's on hard court, which again, I'm kind of just spewing stuff right now. When you're talking hard court, it seems like maybe there's a little bit more parity kind of across this tournament. We're not seeing Nadal win 13 tournaments in a row or whatever it is with the French Open. So I think it's exciting to kind of see that, maybe there's a little bit more going on. How does the U.S. Open compare? Speaking of parity, how does the U.S. Open compare to other majors in terms of predictability? Do you find that it's more predictable, less predictable? Do you feel like there's a lot more guys that you're able to bet on, considering that there's maybe a bigger field that has a chance of really making it far?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's less predictable for sure, because unlike Wimbledon and the French Open, where there's like a couple guys who are really good at clay or really good at grass and just constantly win those two tournaments. I think the U.S. Open, there's a lot more players who are good and who, have good stretches that can make a deep run in a tournament like this. and there's definitely a lot of people. I think Denis Shapovalov could do it again, like he did last year. He made a quarterfinal appearance in the U.S. Open. I think after how he played this week, I think he could for sure do it.
It's fascinating when you throw out some of those names, and it's like, maybe these are guys that people don't really know of, and kind of are a little bit of the unheralded players. We're so used to hearing those same names at the top, but I think that makes it so fun because you get to see these kind of, there's so many upsets that happen, right? You see a
Oh
couple of
yeah,
early round upsets, and then it's like it just keeps going through, and then we may end up with a final with, I think in the women's tournament last year it was like two teenagers were in the final,
yeah, I think so.
which is nuts. I mean, it seems like that shouldn't be the case, but there's some just really, really talented players kind of in
Yeah.
all different age groups, which is super interesting. I think you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier when we're talking about like court surface. How much are you taking that into play? Because it's hard court, are you looking at a lot of players with good hard court track records? Are you just kind of, is that something you really think about? I mean, I have to believe it's something that comes into
Oh
play, but
yeah,
maybe with
for
hard
sure.
court, it's a little bit less than, maybe on grass or on clay, like you mentioned.
I mean, it's not. I mean, if someone has a bad grass wet record or a bad clay record, they're obviously not going to, tend to do very well on clay. And I feel hardcourt is what everybody kind of starts off on playing tennis almost. I mean, based on where you live, I feel like if you're like in Spain and Mexico, you start off on clay. But so yeah, hardcourt. I feel like since it's hardcourt, it's a lot less predictable, and there's a lot more players that can play well or just have a downfall because it's
No,
clay.
I,
If
yeah.
with clay, if the surface is hard, then the ball moves slower. But if the surface is no, if it's hot out, then the clay's not so hard, the ball moves slower. If it's colder, then it's hard and the ball moves very quick. So that's not really the case in hard court. So
There's definitely more elements at play when we're talking about
yes.
clay, I think for sure. And it's like that's where Rafa has such an advantage over a lot of these guys, is because he's just gotten so comfortable and he's played so many just big tournament matches on this different surface. And he's probably, he's played in the heat, he's played in the cold, he's kind of done everything. And that's why he's, gotten where he is. But I think when you're talking about hardcore, you take the elements out of it, you kind of take out the unpredictability of the court. It's very uniform. Like you said, a lot of these people grew up on these courts. So maybe we got a chance. Like we said, a couple of young bucks, couple of, maybe the old guys aren't just, maybe we don't see Novak taking the win just because, that's what he seems to be doing all the time now. I
Right.
want I want to talk a little bit. Let's dive into maybe some names. I'm not super dialed into tennis. We don't know what the draw looks like yet, so we're kind of just going off of maybe background research, a little bit of knowledge. Do we have some kind of players that maybe you're looking at as possible quarterfinalists? Maybe guys that are going to make a run, regardless of draw. Just kind of names that you're keeping an eye on for just thinking that they may make a kind of a deep run in the tournament.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't. First off, I'm gonna mention Daniil, the world number one, who was the reigning champ, in the U.S. Open. I think I don't know why, but so we don't even know if Novak's gonna be playing in the U.S. Open based on his vaccination status.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of books still have him listed as the favorite to win. So I think right now, especially with only like 10 days until the tournament, if you're going to bet on the US Open and you don't know a lot, I would take the reigning champ, because once they find out if Novak's playing or not, he's either going to go up or he's going to go, very down. He's going to be one of the heavy favorites.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like I said earlier, I think Denis has a good chance to make a run, potentially even farther, maybe a semifinals run if he stays out of his head. Same with Nick Kyrgios. I think both of those I think they can play good. They're good hard court players, but their mental state is where they kind of struggle, and sometimes they kind of get in their own head, and then it's over for them. So I think if as long as they can keep it in their head, keep focused, I think those two can make a decent run. And then Alex Demon Moore, I think he's been playing very well on hard court this year. I think we could see him making a pretty couple upsets.
I love that we're just kind of throwing out these. I love the hotheads. I love the hotheads. They make tennis
Yes.
so fun to
Oh,
watch
it
when they're
does.
chirping the fans, they're chirping the refs. It's like I Kyrgios is maybe my favorite guy to watch, even just
Oh
seeing the
yeah.
highlights and shit. I'm just like, this dude is a goon. Like he just does some shit that you just can't like you. It's hard to explain. So I think
Right.
those are some great picks. Let's talk a little bit about that more, just because I'm curious. Are you look? Do you like betting on guys that are kind of that really up and down kind of player where they're like curious if he's locked in and maybe the mental side is actually propelling him. Do you like, are we thinking those guys are really good, kind of good locks to go far, or do you think they also kind of bring that back to earth part where it's like, you know big reward if they do great, but there's a good chance they could lose out in the first or second round if they really, if they get in their own head like you said.
Right. No, I think I mean it's going to be based on the value, and if they're like listed as heavy favorites to be that quarter winner, then obviously I would almost shy away from it just because of the mental states. But if they're like, I don't know, if they got good value, then they're definitely worth some betting on.
Yeah, just a little bit of money. Hey, you just have
Yeah,
to sprinkle
just
a
a
little
little
bit on it.
sprinkle.
Just a little sprinkle. That's all it is. That's all it is. I feel like we didn't talk a lot about like head-to-head matchups. Obviously, we don't know the draw, like you said. Is there something you're looking for in terms of when you see certain guys paired up together? Are there certain advantages that you like where you kind of, you lock in on a guy because of certain attributes that he's got, maybe his speed or his serve or whatever it is? Are there certain kind of certain things that you maybe think of are a bigger advantage on hard court than maybe again like we said on clay or on grass?
Um, I'd say serve is one of the big things. If you could have a pretty powerful serve and you can slam a lot of aces in the match, if you get those first services through, then you're a pretty big threat to be reckoned with. So I think serve is a big thing. I don't know quite. I'd say there's a rivalry I'm kind of looking more forward to, and they're actually playing a match, and probably right now it's Medvedev and Tsitsipas.
Mm.
Those two are always fun to watch
Oh
when
yeah.
they play against each other, and they played what was it last in the Aussie Open in the quarterfinal, and Medvedev almost just mopped the floor with him. But I think this one tonight might be a little bit closer, and then I think just based how seeding might work out, I think they might get quite the same draw, close to last year.
Yeah, we might see those two battling it out again in kind of a late round match. I think Tsitsipas is always I really enjoy watching him. I think again, these guys that are just a little bit more fiery, they got a little bit more kind
Yeah,
of, and that's what I think is so fun about tennis is I don't know if it's just maybe the nature of being an individual sport, or just that you have to be so locked in every single match. But I feel like in tennis, a lot of these guys are big personalities. They love to talk. They love to they're in their own heads a little bit. Their mental game is super all over the place. I feel like again we watch Medvedev and Tsitsipas play, and we might see a battle to the death. I don't know. I don't
yeah,
know. I mean, come on.
that would be fun.
That would be fun. That would be fun. I think there's so much going into this. I mean, honestly, like having a conversation just about tennis, I feel like is getting me more excited for it. And maybe I'll take a couple of long shots to make a run. Um,
Right.
I know you mentioned a couple of your favorites. I was gonna ask kind of long shots, favorites, front runners. I feel like we've kind of hit a couple of those spots. Um, is there anyone who are you thinking is gonna win? Do you have an idea of who you think is gonna win? I know you said Medvedev because he's a reigning champ. He is the number one in the world. Is he your guy? Is he your front runner
I
right
think
now?
I think him or Rafa. I mean I have to say it, but even with his injuries, he won the Aussie Open, he won the French Open, and then he withdrew from Wimbledon. So I mean, I think it would have been more looking good. I mean, it would have been a lot bigger if he would have won. Made stayed in Wimbledon, won it, and would have been going for the all four Grand Slams. But
Hmm.
three would be still pretty good for him, and I think he could do it as long as he stays healthy enough.
Yeah, and that's always the issue with him is as these guys age a little bit. Obviously, we've seen Fed just have to, he's
Oh
been
yeah,
battling through injuries for what the last 2 or 3 years it feels like.
yeah,
And yeah, Nadal, it's like God. I mean, I don't know. I've always been kind of hit or miss with Nadal. He's not my favorite. I was always a Fed guy growing up, so Nadal's kind of he's the enemy a little bit.
yeah.
Uh,
Rivalry.
but he is fun to watch. I mean, it's always fun watching a lefty play, especially when they're smooth
Yeah,
with it. And he's as smooth as they come. He still looks like he's 28, just
yeah,
taking the fear, and just absolutely throwing it in these young guys' faces.
yeah.
He's
No,
still an
he really
intimidating
is.
matchup. Yeah, no, he's I like that pick. I like that pick. I gotta say, Nadal would be fun to see win. Um, let's just kind of maybe change a little bit here. I'd love to ask a couple of questions. I don't know how much you're betting on WTA, but it is Serena Williams. I think she said she's retiring after the U.S. Open. Is that right?
Yes,
I feel like she said that
yes. Her last tournament.
her last tournament, and obviously she has struggled. I feel like
Yes.
she has not done very much. Do you think there's any
No,
chance
she got.
she makes a miracle run, or do we think it's Serena out in the first, kind of
I think.
maybe a little bit of a crash and burn? But obviously
I
she's the
think
goat,
there might
so
be hope. There might be hope for Serena to make it past the first round, but I don't know much after that. Since it's her last one, maybe she'll really, really want that one last win for the first round. But I mean, there's a lot of youngsters out there for the woman that are really killing it. So, I mean, who really wants it more at that point?
yeah. And I don't know. She's probably a little too old. I mean, after that movie came out, I feel like, the career is kind of dwindled away. I mean, obviously she's fought injuries, she's had pregnancies, she's got all these different
Yep.
things going on in her life that are probably a lot bigger than tennis at this point. But
Yeah,
um,
no, for sure.
it would be fun to have her see, like, make a little bit of a run, just, one for the ages, just to see what can happen. But again, there's just the girls right now. I mean, those that are coming up, the young ones, the youngsters. I mean, it just feels like there's names upon names that just keep coming out, and it's like
Yeah,
they make
no.
a come up for, a tournament, couple tournaments, and then maybe they kind of fall. I mean, obviously we saw, was it Barty, right? Ashley Barty, who, she wasn't she number one in the world, and then she like quit tennis, right? I mean, I think she like retired or something. I don't know. I may be making this
I'm
up.
not really sure what happened with her.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of just speaking on my own. Well, okay, that was interesting. I love talking a little bit of Serena. She is the goat. We gotta mention
Yep.
her at least
Oh, for
once.
sure.
Um, is there anything else that you may you had in mind in terms of important things to look at when we're talking about U.S. Open matchups that we'd like to see, rivalries we'd like to see, anything, any last thoughts that you think are important for people to think about when going into betting this wonderful tennis tournament?
I think after the draw comes out, quarters are going to be some of your better bets to pay attention to. I mean, obviously they won't happen until later on into the week, but it's something more to cheer on instead of like say, I mean, obviously Daniil or Stefanos and Rafa, they're going to be probably heavy favorites going into round 1, 2, 3, but getting them at a quarter at plus money is never an issue.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to look at it. I think quarters, I think obviously, there's only one tournament winner. I think with like golf, it's really hard to predict who's going to win the tournament. So a lot of what we do in golf betting, it's like top tens, top 20s, top fives,
Oh
different
yeah.
things to make the cut, right?
Yep.
There's different ways to still make plus money, without just throwing all of your chips into one basket and saying, all right, well, plus 1,000, plus 1,800, whatever it is for a guy to win a tournament. It's like, well, again, there's only one of them, and one bad round, or one bad matchup where they're a little bit kind of on the wrong side of it, and there goes all your hopes. So
Yeah.
I like what you're talking about, Nick. I think quarters is going to be a fun one to throw some money at. Especially if you can get some of those top guys at good plus money. Maybe if you can get it before Novak, maybe before some statement comes out about him, maybe you can get some other guys at some better values. Who knows? Who knows? But I think there's a lot to play with. I think there's a lot to mess
Oh
around
yeah.
with, a lot of places to put your money. I love I love what I was able to learn, just kind of figure out, again, hard court's going to be interesting. U.S. Open's always interesting. A lot of different winners. There's not, it doesn't, other than I was kind of looking back at some past winners, and I think it was Fed won 5 in a row in kind of the mid 2000s. But since then,
Yeah.
it's been like new, different guy every year, it seems like. So,
Yep.
it's exciting time for
It
tennis.
is.
Last major of the year. Love that. You gotta finish strong. Maybe you got a little bit of extra money to play with to throw on a big tournament. Why not? Why not? Why not make it happen? Again, we're gonna find Nick at Voltage Picks on Twitter. He is the man. He is the newest tennis guru. Obviously, he's new to it, but he knows his stuff, right? He knows his stuff.
Right. Little
Nick,
bit.
it was really fun having you on. Hopefully, you had a good time. I think we had a great conversation, kind of leading
I
into, at
did.
least again, without any really knowledge of the draw. I think we're at least able to kind of figure out maybe where some spots are to look at, what to think about when we're kind of going into betting, and hopefully you can get a couple more guys in your dub club, followers and subscribers,
That would be nice.
and then we can get a couple of these guys some big checks rolling out, once the tournament ends. So
Yes,
thanks so
sir.
much for coming on, dude. It was a great
Thank you
time.
for having me.
Yeah, that was a blast. All right, again, find him on Twitter, Nick at Voltage Picks. It's a group of handicappers, but he's the tennis and hockey guy, and he kills it. He kills it. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you.